Drinking buddies, let's rank every single bottle of Buffalo Trace. And there's a lot of them, so we better get going.
I'm your drinking buddy.
All right, drinking buddies. So for the F category, I have two bottles, and one of them probably won't surprise you, and that is the Benchmark Standard 8, Benchmark 8. I just find it to be one of the weakest shelf bourbons I've ever tasted, and for me, it's one I would never buy. It's a total F for me. I think there is much better, shelf available cheap offerings out there that aren't this thin and kind of weak. And then the other one that I think you might find very surprising is Pappy 23. Now, the reason I'm placing this here is because I find it to be extremely overhyped, extremely over-oaked, and both times I had it, it gave me a dry vermouth thing on the palate, and the second time I got handed the glass blind, and the guy goes, "What are you drinking?" And I go, "It kind of tastes like an over-oaked rye." And he told me that I lost my whiskey channel for saying that, but that was kind of the vibes it gave me, and like a really over-oaked rye was what it tasted like to me. But yeah, kind of bitter oak and just thin. And for the two people who've let me try this before, if you're watching this, I apologize. I appreciate that you let me, experience such an expensive, rare, awesome whiskey. It just wasn't for me. D category. For me, I'm going to go ahead and say that Weller Single Barrel, it's just a disappointing pour every time I go to it. I'm just disappointed each and every time. I think that there are much better wheated bourbons out there that you don't have to hunt so hard for. That one's one in my area that's pretty much only in raffles, and it's just not getting that in a raffle. Like, you spent all this money at a liquor store just to get that bottle, I would find to be pretty disappointing. And then another one. Now, I'm being a little bit hard on this bottle because it is very cheap. It's just one that I just never go back to drinking, and there's just better bottles out there on shelves. I'm sorry, H&H. It's a perfectly fine whiskey, but it's not good enough to reach any higher levels, and there are better shelf bottles out there. So the last one in category D for me is going to be Van Winkle Lot B. The reason I'm putting in this D category is not because it's bad whiskey, but I'm just putting it here firmly because it's basically the same thing as Weller 12 for double the price and for quadruple the hype. So for the C category, I'm being a little bit hard on Blanton's here, I think. But, for $60 at MSRP, it's a really great bottle. But, people have really overhyped it. And it's one that's coming out to be, a lot more than that. It's extremely expensive at some stores. It's extremely limited in some states. And I just find that there's probably better shelf bottles available than Blanton's that you don't have to hunt for. So therefore, I'm going to have to put it in the C category, even though it is a good bottle. Next up, regular Weller Special Reserve. I like Weller Special Reserve just fine. I think it's a good bottle, but I would rather buy regular Maker's Mark or Maker's 46 and not hunt, personally. Kind of two surprising ones, because probably a lot of you wouldn't expect me to throw these two this low, but Elmer, T. Lee, and Weller Full Proof kind of have to go in this category for me, because for Elmer, I would way rather have a Rock Hill. I would rather have a Blanton's, so I got to put it in this category because I think Blanton's is slightly better than Elmer. And then as far as the Weller Full Proof goes, I would rather have a 107. I like Weller 107 much more. So I have to have it below 107. And I think that Weller Full Proof for me, I would rather have a Maker's Cask Strength. I would rather have like pretty much any special edition Maker stuff personally. And so therefore I have to put it in the C category. And then we're going to cheat here a little bit because I'm going to put the entire rest of the Benchmark line right here, except for the aforementioned Benchmark Old Number 8 or Benchmark 8, whatever it's called, and then the Benchmark Full Proof, which is going to come later. Spoiler alert, it's not in this category, but the rest of the Benchmark offerings are going to go here. Next up, we have the B category. So now we're into really good whiskeys. Everything else has been okay to subpar. These are really, really, really good whiskeys. Everything in the B category is something that I bought, I will buy again. Well, I have never bought Rock Hill Farms before because I've never had an opportunity. But spoiler alert, Rock Hill Farms is going to be a B for me, purely because it's probably an A whiskey at 100 proof, but it's a unicorn. It's impossible to find. And, I can get a E.H. Taylor small batch a lot easier, and I find that they're probably pretty comparable, to be honest. I've never had them, next to each other, but I'm going to put something like an E.H. Taylor small batch ahead of this one. Next up, we're going to have the Benchmark Full Proof. You know, we teased it a little bit in the last category, but Benchmark Full Proof for $20 to $25, 120 proof Buffalo Trace juice. It's a steal. It's a good bottle. It's youthy. It's not like a wonderful bottle, but when you consider the price, the proof, and the flavors that are going on here, I have to put it in the B category. Next up, we have two more from the Buffalo Trace Mash Bill number 2. We're going to go with Hancock, which I really do like, but now that the price just keeps going up and up and up and up, I'm just like, what is going on with Hancock? It is now $100 a total wine, and I'm just like so confused by this. How are they charging more for Hancock than they are for Blanton's? Blows my mind. I do like it a little bit more than Blanton's personally. I think it's one of my favorite whiskeys I've ever had under 90 proof, to be honest. But yeah, it's just the price is crazy, and I'm gonna have to go ahead and put it in the B category, even though I do really like it. And then the other Mash 2 that I think belongs in this category is gonna go ahead and be Blanton's Gold. 103 proof, wonderful whiskey. And if it was a little bit easier to find and a little bit less MSRP, because MSRP is about $100, I would definitely put it in a higher category. But even at $100, I'm on the fence of whether or not it's worth that high dollar amount. It is really good though. I do dig it. And every time I've ever had a pour, I've really enjoyed it. Next, we're going to put the two flagship Buffalo Trace bottles right here in the B category, because if you can find them on shelves every day, they are worth it. That's going to be Buffalo Trace and Sazerac Rye. Great bottles, both under $25 in a lot of areas, under $30 in most, and they're becoming a lot easier to find. In most areas, you can now find them a lot easier than you could a year ago, 2 years ago. So it's a good sign. I think that means that, you know, with the expansions Buffalo Trace has done, maybe in 5 years we'll be able to find some of these other bottles a lot easier as well. So fingers crossed. All right, so that's the rest of the B category. So now we're going to move to the A bottles. Now, all of these are wonderful whiskeys that are worth MSRP to a little bit more. I would pay a little bit more than MSRP for all of these. And I'm going to begin with Eagle Rare. So Eagle Rare is a great bottle. I'd probably pay up to $50 for an Eagle Rare, especially if I haven't had one in a while. Eagle Rare picks, definitely never pass up. Those are really good. I'm going to go ahead and also cheat a little bit here, and I'm going to put the entire E.H. Taylor line in here. So everything from E.H. Taylor. So the barrel proof, the small batch, the single barrel, the rye. Why am I putting them all in the A category? Because if they put that E.H. Taylor name on the barrel bottle, it is an A bottle. Like, I have never been even remotely disappointed by any of the Buffalo. I've never been disappointed by any of the E.H. Taylor line. The only exception to that would be, I would say that the single barrel is a little bit overrated. But you know, I'm just comparing the entire line here, and I think that this entire line deserves an A. It really does. Next up, I'm going to go ahead and say the entire kosher line. Now, I had to put these in a higher category than the last round, because in the last round I had Buffalo Trace and I had Sazerac Rye, and in the previous round before that I had the Weller Special Reserve. Well, here's the facts. The kosher wheat is better than Weller Special Reserve. The kosher rye is better than Sazerac Rye, and the kosher rye recipe, the rye recipe bourbon, is better than Buffalo Trace. So how could I not put them in the A category? Unfortunately, they're very limited, and so therefore, you know, you might not be able to find them, but they are very good if you ever see them on shelves. Next up, I'm going to go with Old Rip 10. I know this is one that I've hyped a lot on this channel. It's a great bottle. I just don't think it quite belongs in the S category, because I would say that I've even had some Antique 107 picks that I like more. So for hunting for this thing, it's a total unicorn. It's an $80 MSRP, so it's a buy every day at retail, obviously. But you know, it sells for $900 at some stores. So that's a reason I have to kick it out of the S category. It's not worth some of the hype it gets, even though it is a really good whiskey. Next up, we have the three Weller bottles that I will always consider A, and that's going to be Weller 107, Weller 12, and Weller CYPB. I know these bottles are overhyped. I know they are overcharging place at a lot of the museum liquor stores, but I'm not holding that against these bottles. These bottles belong in the A category firmly. They are wonderful. I will buy them every time I see them, and hopefully they will become more available as Buffalo Trace continues to expand its distillery and rickhouses. And yeah, I love these three bottles. Love, 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 love. We have three more in the A category here. And so that is going to be three extremely rare, extremely hyped, extremely ridiculously hard to come by bottles but they are excellent every time I've ever had them, and that's going to be Sazerac 18, which does sometimes border on being over oaked for a rye, but I do love it. I think it's really good. I just wish it was over 90 proof. Ugh. Almost put this one in the C category, to be honest, but it is just so... I moved it around quite a bit when I was going through these rankings, but I ended up putting it in the A. Next up, Eagle Rare 17. Now, this is another one that almost borders on being over oaked, but I do like that oak presence. It's 101 proof, so you get 7 more years of age, 11 more proof points on a regular Eagle Rare, and I just think it totally delivers. And then the last one in this category is going to be the Van Winkle Family Reserve Rye. This is one of the best ryes you will ever taste in your entire life. However, it is also one of the most limited whiskeys on planet Earth, and therefore I'm knocking it out of the S category for that reason. Things like William LaRue Weller, for example, or Thomas Handy, these two guys here, they are unicorns. And their unicorn is something like the Family Reserve Rye. That Van Winkle Family Reserve Rye is just absolutely unobtainium. So I will put that in the A category, even though it probably could be an S. All right. And so in the S category, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 6 bottles left for this S category. And I'll go ahead and throw on the 2 that you know that I was going to throw in this category, and that's going to be the Thomas Handy and the WLW. I think they firmly belong in the S category. They are 2 of the best whiskeys in their categories I have ever tasted. They are total unicorns, I get it, but if you ever have an opportunity to pick one of them in a lottery, a raffle, anything like that, you will be pleasantly surprised. Blanton's Strength from the Barrel is one that I have never seen on store shelves, but doesn't carry a very high secondary value. So when I want one, what I do is trade for it. I get a few bottles that I haven't, that I have in my closet that I haven't gotten around to, and I trade for a bottle of Weller straight from the barrel. So if this is something you're interested in doing, get on Reddit, get on Facebook, join some local groups and see if you can trade, because, sometimes you can get some of these really ridiculously rare bottles if you're willing to trade some of the stuff you have lying around. Also, since we're in the conversation of that the BTAC line, one that I've never been able to land, but it's definitely belongs in the S category, is George T. Stagg. For the longest time, I thought this was my favorite whiskey on planet Earth, and I think it's been supplanted by WLW at this point because I've had it a couple blinds, and the WLW wins for me. But yeah, GTS, they're amazing. They're amazing. I get it that they're unicorns and they're basically unobtainium, but they are so good. And what I do generally is when I'm having a vacation with my family, I generally like to try to find a bar in the area that will have a pour of George T. Stagg, and I have a pour on vacation. Now, what does that mean? Some places might charge $100 for that pour. I don't go to that place. I want to go $50 or less for that pour, and that's got to be a 2-ounce pour for $50. That's my top dollar, but for a 2-ounce pour of George T. Stagg, $50, I call that a bargain. Usually I'm into paying about $40 for a George T. Stagg pour. But yeah, those are so good, and that's my little vacation treat I do for myself. Next up, we have Stagg. So Stagg is, a great bottle that, of course, this Stagg, not George T. Stagg. These are great, and their store picks are wonderful. I get it that they are kind of difficult to find, but this is going to be the easiest find bottle in this S category. So also, for whatever reason, this is often cheaper for a pour at whiskey bars than a lot of the ones I've mentioned in category A, and it's better. So I've been to bars where this is less than half the cost of a pour of Blanton's Gold, less than half the cost of a pour of Hancock, a third of the cost of something like an Old Rip 10. So keep that in mind. If you're out and you're about and you find a whiskey bar in your area, Stagg, and you've never had one before, probably isn't going to break your bank, whereas some of these other ones will. And then lastly, the king of bourbons. It's not my favorite, but it's definitely an S bottle, is Pappy 15. That one is a S bottle. It is one of the best whiskeys made on planet Earth. That 107 proof points, those 15 years, nearly perfect whiskey. It is amazing. And that completes our list. Let me know down below what you thought. Am I just a whiskey tater for ranking some of these bottles this high? Am I a total lunatic for some of the placement I did on some of these? Am I canceled for putting Pappy 23 in the F category? I don't know. But drinking buddies, I really appreciate every single one of you. I thank you so much for watching, and we will see you on the next one.